You know, there is a lot of buzz about the Kerala story, and rightfully so. But then there is yet another Kerala story which is unfolding. It is about stabbing of a young doctor, Dr. Vandana Das. That's what we are going to speak about today. Kerala went through one of its most shocking incidents. In the last few days, a young doctor at the Kottarakara Taluk Hospital was stabbed to death by a patient who was treating her. The victim, Dr. Vandana Das, was the only daughter of K.G. Mohan Das and Vasanta Kumari. She was a final year MBBS student of Aridia Institute and a house surgeon at the Taluk Hospital. This young doctor was attacked by a 42-year-old man called Samdeep, who is a teacher, who was brought to the hospital in a state where apparently, allegedly, he had lost control of all his mental faculties. Like I said, this is the other Kerala story, the stabbing, the real Kerala story as it were. Now the accused Sandeep was brought to the hospital to treat an injury on his leg. Sandeep is said to have become suddenly violent, grabbed a pair of scissors and attacked first his relative, after which he proceeded to attack Dr. Vandana Das. This young doctor in her early 20s had 15 stab wounds in different parts of her body. Reports have come in that the accused was under treatment at a de-addiction center, and Sandeep was apparently undergoing withdrawal symptoms. Let's look at it, in the broader perspective as it were. Kerala has seen a 333% rise in a number of NDPS cases that were filed in the state last year. Some say it is 450%, some say it is 333%. So wait, we're not trying to stigmatize Sandeep also because he was suffering from withdrawal symptoms. But who is to take the onus? Who is to take the onus of Dr. Vandana's death? Untimely, unfair death. That's what we are going to discuss today. In the studio, my colleague Verghese is joining us, and then also Jisha Surya, who is joining us on, she's my colleague as well, Dr. Sulfi Nuhu, State President IMA Kerala. Let me tell you, the doctors have been out on the street protesting, wanting protection for the doctors. Dr. Rohan Krishnan, Vice President of FIMA, is also joining us, and Asha Jomes, who is an activist from Kerala and speaks very, very impactfully on women's issues, is also joining me. First, let me set the context of the story. Like I said, this is the Kerala story, but about the stabbing of a young doctor. Verghese, very unfortunate. But the questions that you and I are asking, and the thing is that it is not, it is of course the primary thing is the murder of a young doctor. But who's going to take onus of this man who walks into office accompanied by policemen? He's not handcuffed by them. He is obviously in a state of mental agony and is showing allegedly withdrawal symptoms. He jumps out of bed, runs towards his relative, grabs hold of scissors, and then proceeds to first harm some policemen, and also then goes and attacks Dr. Vandana Das. How do you look at it? I mean, there are layers after layers, as it were, and that's why I think Dr. Vandana Das's death is extremely unfortunate.
It is a very unfortunate incident. At the same time, Sudha, we must understand that when we look at this particular story, as you rightly pointed out, there are layers and layers to this story. From outside, when we see a 42-year-old teacher like Sandeep murdering a bright doctor like Vandana. But what led to that murder is much more shocking. We are looking at Sandeep, who is said to have in fact displayed withdrawal symptoms. His neighbors have come out saying that he has been having fights with his mother over the issue of money for funding his drugs. There are issues that have been raised within his friend circles also, but some of them are in fact shocked. Now, who is Sandeep? Sandeep is a teacher. He was a serving teacher, and he is in touch with students. As of now, reports are coming and said that he has not created any kind of trouble in his school. But a teacher who is under the influence of drugs, and this is something that has in fact come as a shocker. And the bigger issue is in Kerala, 333% rise in NDPS cases. Now, this is, in fact, the excise department, which was separately booking cases under the NDPS Act, has seen a 50% rise in the number of cases it has been registering. So, last year, roughly around 26,000 NDPS cases have been registered in Kerala. Sandeep is a symptom of a larger social
malaise,
erosion.
as it were.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it's
yeah,
something like that.
and I think the government spoke, in glorious terms about Vimukti. You remember,
Yes,
all
they were
those
talking
press
about
conferences
that we had,
Yeah.
in fact, school campaigns that we're talking about.
Celebrities, actors,
everyone was
stars,
talking about it.
influencers. But the point is, if Kerala sees a rise of 333%, you are right. That is also at the kernel of this murder of Vandana Das. Let me go to our colleague Jisha Surya. Jisha, tell us, we've been reading reports, and of course, you've been filing, you've been speaking about it. Jisha, first of all, the FIR which was registered, they said it is attempt to murder. That's what the police said. Now maybe they have changed the FIR. Also, they take hours to register the FIR. As of now, Jisha Surya, this is also a Kerala story, stabbing of a young doctor, as it were. Where does the story stand?
Yesterday and today, the Kerala High Court has taken up this case, and it has called it a systemic failure from the part of Kerala government, and it also put a blame on the police, because it said that the police were supposed to save the life of a young woman, a daughter, who was on duty at that time. What happened to the police? Are they the first one to run away? This was the question the High Court has asked. So the court has pointed out certain systemic failures. For example, in this particular case, there was a police aid post at that hospital, and policemen were present at that time, but no one were able to save this woman. That's a major problem that all are finding an issue with. Even the ADGP was asked to explain this at the court today, and they said that they will change the protocol while presenting these people in front of the doctors or medical examiners. But this case was what initially said. It is different that this person was not under custody. He was actually a complainant, and but he was under the influence. It's still not sure whether he was under the influence of any drugs, but he was an alcoholic. That's what police said, and they produced him without taking necessary precautions, and that led to this unfortunate situation. So now today, the High Court asked the police what are the protocols they want to take. They said that they will explore possibilities, even deploying SISF at hospitals.
Right. Jisha, let me come back to you. I'm going to Dr. Sulfi Nuhu, who's the state president of IMA in Kerala. But before that, on the one hand, all of us remember the way we threw rose petals on doctors, calling them frontline warriors, praying for them, sending them flowers. But then today they are out on the streets in Kerala wanting justice for their colleague. Take a look at these visuals.
സമാധാനം കളഞ്ഞ് പിച്ചക്കാശിന് വേണ്ടി പണിയെടുത്തോണ്ടിരുന്ന ഒരു
The profession is indeed shocked by the gruesome murder which has happened in Kerala, Kottarakara. Now, IMA views this with a lot of agony. The National Action Committee has already viewed the situation very seriously. The National President and the National Secretary are also in the know-how, and they have also reacted sharply. We are having a meeting today afternoon of the Kerala State Branch at 1 p.m., which will also be joined by the national leaders, and a strong action plan nationally would happen. because this is something which just cannot be tolerated. It is not for the sake of doctors, but for the sake of society. If treatment has to happen, then doctors should be able to treat patients in a fearless atmosphere. We may note that no mishap occurs in an airport, a railway station, a police station, in a secretariat, no other place. In ISRO or like VSSC, you cannot even enter the gate. So these are all high security zones. So why such sort of security is not being provided in an area where people are emotionally charged? So you just cannot say that the person was emotionally charged up and it was not deliberate. We also know it is not deliberate. We also know that it is because of an emotionally charged situation. But under such circumstances, unless there is an effective mechanism to...
Right. So you heard the doctor, and now let me go to Dr. Sulfi Nuhu, State President of IMA Kerala, to speak more on the matter. Dr. Nuhu, we heard what one doctor said, and today you've been protesting, you've been out on the street. You know something, we've been speaking about this, about the security of doctors for the longest time, because this is a very unfortunate incident. It's a murder, a daylight murder in a hospital, and hospital is supposed to be, temples of security and safety for everyone, for those who are ailing and for those who are working there. But the thing is that apparently not enough measures were put in place even during COVID, because there were cases of people lunging towards doctors when a relative, lost his or her life, Dr. Nuhu. What is your demand right now after the death of Dr. Vandana Das, doctor?
Yeah, it's absolutely devastating. We are sad, angry, depressed, and we are on the streets. This is the second day we are continuing our strike, and actually all the hospitals are shut down. But we need to put an end to this menace. In Kerala, almost every week an attack is happening against a healthcare professional or maybe a doctor. In last 3 years, 200 plus attacks were happened, and this is the first death happened in India probably. This is the first death happened in India. Very, very unfortunate. Very young lady. It's a lady doctor. She was taking night duty at around 5 a.m. A patient was brought. He was brought by the police. The police, and he was violent, and he attacked the doctor with a knife. He was stabbed several times, and finally she was brought to the tertiary care center. She was on ventilator, and finally she died after a failed resuscitation of more than 1 hour. Very sad, and only daughter of her parents. And I heard that her marriage was fixed, and finally the funeral just got over. We demand that we need a Hospital Protection Act. There is an act existing in Kerala, 2012. And also, it is a very, very mild act at the moment, and we need a total amendment on that. We need to introduce strong rules there.
So what are you demanding, Dr. Nuhu? I mean, I've spoken to several, Dr. Lele in the past, because at that time also one saw, COVID patients. I mean, yes, they are emotionally distressed, but trying to attack a lot of doctors, but these cases are now increasing, So what is it now? There are laws in place, please correct me if I'm wrong, doc. Apparently there are some rules and regulations in place, but are they adhered to? Will someone like this will be brought to book, or you are also asking for some kind of a doorkeeping mechanism between patients and doctors, Dr. Nuhu?
Absolutely. See, we demand that there must be an FIR, first investigation report, within 1 hour, and we demand the investigation regarding the attack. Any kind of attack must be over in 1 month time, and this case should be seen or maybe conducted in a special court, and the court judgment must come in 1 year time. And definitely there should be punishment against the police officers if they are not taking adequate action. And also we demand that there must be a special protection zone declared in all hospitals, maybe around 500 meters around the hospitals, so that and also it must be that hospital must be monitored using CCTV cameras, and there should be security persons. And these protective mechanisms must be monitored by police officers regularly. And definitely these are our main demands. And definitely we have to look into the incident which happened in this hospital. We have demanded a high-level committee inquiry into the incident. The patient was brought to the casualty by the police. Police officers were there, and actually they ran away, seeing the situation. And actually, she was stabbed to death. The culprit was sitting on her body and stabbing her several times. It's very, very, very sad, and she's a very young lady doctor.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. What I have heard and what I have read is, apparently he was lying in bed, he was being given, whatever first aid or bandage, whatever it is. He jumped out of bed. Then he goes towards the door. Then he goes and everyone, there is helter-skelter, everyone is running. And then he catches hold of Dr. Vandana Das and stabs her. So what was the police doing? Waiting for Christmas? What were they doing? Why is it that you think it's a complete failure on the part of the police?
Yeah, police is supposed to give protection. We need to introduce a kind of trial system in which violent patients or maybe drug addicts or maybe alcoholic patients must be secluded, and they must be examined first, and then only examined first in the sense that they must be screened, and if they are violent, they should be sedated and then only examined. And moreover, we have to develop a culture in which the healthcare workers and doctors are not attacked, the hospitals and are not attacked, because it's easy to attack. They are soft targets. That's simple. The law is very, very mild. Attacking doctors, doctors and hospitals are soft targets. So you can be absolutely sure that nobody is going to retaliate back. If you go to any other place and you do some kind of violent behavior, you will get it back. In hospitals, doctors and medical care health professionals are not trained for that, unfortunately. So, it happens time and again, and we need to have a permanent end to this menace.
So when are you going to, I know that the ICU and other, emergency services are still on, but how long are you going to protest? Because do you think anything will come out of it?
Yeah, we have met the Chief Minister today morning, and we have submitted our demands. And the government says that they'll consider our demands and they'll come out with strong, maybe a rule, maybe a strong ordinance, which can definitely, it will not end after that, but definitely it's a strong act must be there, strong rules must be there, so that we can move forward. And also we need to strictly implement. Today morning, High Court of Kerala. Yes. It came very strongly against the incident, and also directed the government to give full protection to all hospitals and doctors. We need that, because if doctors are attacked, doctors will go to the defensive medical practice, in which they won't take any risk. When there is a bad patient, they will always try to refer the patient to higher center. By the time you reach the higher center, the patient will die. So it's going to affect the treatment system, and the patients are going to die. So we need to address this issue in that aspect too.
Let me come back to you, Doc. Asha Jomis, who's an activist and from Kerala, is also joining us. Asha, welcome to the show. Very unfortunate, the death of a young woman, doctor who was stabbed, Dr. Vandana Das. Certain things really kind of stood out for me. A is apparently a lot of reports said she just froze, as if she shouldn't have frozen and she should have ran a marathon. She's a doctor after all. Fear can make you freeze. Maybe she was trying to get the situation under control. But what really shocks me, Asha, is that here is a man who's under the influence. Some say alcohol, some say drugs, whatever it is. His mental faculties were not in the place. He was aggressive, he was violent, he was incoherent, he was disoriented. Don't you think this is a complete waste of a death, Asha Jomis? What is the police doing? What is even the hospital administration doing?
Very true, Sudha. It's an extremely shocking incident and very, very unfortunate. When we see the blame shift game happening here, let me make this very, very clear. It is the failure of the police to provide ample protection to the doctor. Whether he was a complainant or a criminal doesn't matter. As you have said, there has been a lot of evidence and data, information at this point that clearly shows that the police clearly failed to protect a doctor. Now, this is not the first time that we have, as a society, as the system and the state, failed to provide protection to the doctors. The doctors, as my very respected Dr. Sulfi Nu have clearly mentioned, this is not the first time. In the past 3 years, more than 200 cases have been filed. And time and again, the doctors have come out and talked about the need for protection of a safe working environment. And you have clearly mentioned about the different layers this incident have. And let me add one more layer to it. The duty and responsibility of the state to provide safe working environment. And you have seen in cinema, when the women in cinema said that they do not have a safe working environment, the government did the same circus.
Exactly.
They appointed a Justice Hema Commission. They came out with a report, and they did not do anything about the report. And I want to clearly mention this to the doctors: please do not fall for that false tactics of the government. The government would come up with a report and they would say that they would fix everything. They would come out with an audience. Do not fall for the promise.
But what is the way out then, Asha? What do you do?
You have, it is the responsibility of the citizens, not just of the doctors. The doctors' safety is not just the responsibility of the doctors. It is also the responsibility of the civic society involved, including myself, to pressure the government to ensure that these safety standards are put into place. And it is not just the doctors who need, our health minister made an extremely insensitive comment. I'm sure she did not mean it, but it was super insensitive to make at this juncture when a doctor was killed by, a criminal who was brought to the hospitals with the police protection. She said, she was shocked and she could not do anything. As you rightly said, what do you expect a doctor to do in such scenario?
Yeah,
no, it is a very extremely insensitive comment to make at that point. So there has to be training that has to be given to, police when they are handling with, criminals or anybody who are high risk. And as the doctors rightly pointed out, they have brought out a lot of recommendations about making the hospitals a high security area, and all these, if you look at the conviction rates, it's literally zero. Nobody got convicted because they
you've hit the nail. You've hit the nail on the head. Even for, I have heard it not only from Kerala but from Punjab, from Maharashtra, everywhere, where a doctor was slapped, pushed, his coat was torn, but nothing happens. They say, okay, it's fine, because the hospitals in a lot of apparently situation doesn't want a bad name. I'm going to turn my focus on the other aspect of it, which is this man was under the influence, apparently. So let me come back to you. Let me go to Jisha, my colleague. Jisha, they say, some people say alcohol, some people say drugs, whatever it is. The Kerala government, you see, look at the figures. If we have, figures of that, 333%, Varghese, if I'm not wrong, increased in people who are under the influence of substance, different types of substance. Teenagers being the most vulnerable. This man at 42 was a teacher, for God's sake. So look at it this way, the increase which has happened, if we can show those numbers, I want to ask you, we had the Vimukti scheme of the Kerala government. We had all. What happened to all that, Jisha? I mean, I'm amazed. What really happened to all that? Seems like the government totally failed.
Yes, the government has been seriously launching a lot of campaigns to control this drug menace and other issues. But I think if we put the blame only on drugs or alcohol, we are not seeing the big picture, which is that there are a lot of this attack against doctors are continuing, and that alcohol or drug is not the main reason. That is the response of people. That last month, a woman, a lady doctor, was attacked in Trivandrum, where a person kicked her stomach, and she was also in a serious condition. Luckily, she didn't die. Dr. Sulfi, who is present here, he had written a post, a social media post last month, saying that there might be a victim. He had warned that there might be a victim. One doctor will die soon, and that may be himself. He had warned that. So this is, if we blame on alcohol or drugs, there is a serious problem in the way society is taking this issue. They respond, in such a way that they can do anything. And that things should change. As we could address this issue of drug and alcohol, that is another serious menace in Kerala. Even recently, this Malayalam movie industry had to take a decision that they are banning two actors. That didn't use the word ban, but they said that they are not cooperating with certain actors, and they are going to take strict measures against the use of drugs, because that's very rampant. So this is not just in one industry. It is a very rampant issue, and Kerala government said that they are addressing this issue
Right.
in another the other side. Yeah.
Right. And Varghese, this what Jisha was talking about, that Dr. Sulfi Nuhu had warned, because I was also reading about it, that sooner rather than later there is going to be a killing. That's very prescient. I mean, in the way, so this menace is not just the Kerala story, it's the India story.
It is the India story, because one of the things that a lot of patients, of course, we must understand that patients are relative, they are very emotional when
Of course.
a person
No,
comes to
I
the
understand,
hospital.
yeah.
But then there are certain places where, it's considered to be the doctor's fault. Like they just say that they blame everything on the doctor.
I'll tell you
Even
why.
to the point of taking a weapon
No,
and threatening
Varghese,
the
that
doctor.
is because here in this country, in the subcontinent, the doctors is equated to God. You see, it's like the God failed you. You see, when your doctor cures you, you see a lot of people falling at the doctor's feet and saying, you saved my life. Aap mere Bhagwan hai, you are my God. So I think this whole bond which is there, it is there. But then with that society is also, there is rage. Why do we only stick to one arm of this society? You have to see, society is growing in some ways very poorly, in some ways it remains where it is. So I think, don't you think? I mean, it's just that, everyone tries to get into the doctor's chamber.
They do. They try
Everyone,
to rush into
one
the
word.
room.
You see, this is it. So in the West, it doesn't happen, right?
It doesn't happen. It's got a much more systemic pattern in which they are interacting with patients. There is a lot of what I would call influences not there to pressurize the doctor to look into things. And as rightly pointed out, one of the factors that this case talks about the security factor. Today we are talking about Sandeep, who would have been under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And by the way, he has been kept on a separate cell because he has still delusional that he's screaming out saying that someone is trying to murder him.
Yeah, so look at that,
So right now the situation over there is such that you will be facing such kind of patients coming in. You will have such kind of situations where the doctor's life could be at risk. But then what is the security part of it doing? Let's forget the police. There was security that was deputed at the hospital itself. Every hospital has a security system in place. So it has failed at multiple levels. The police who were close to the person did not look into the issue, nor has the security responded adequately as it took an unfortunate incident where the death of the only child of the parents had to bring this into focus, the security threat that is there to doctors.
So it is Kerala story, but the stabbing story, the real story as it were. Dr. Nuhu, I just want to come to you and ask you, what made you, Dr. Nuhu, to make that prediction? You were very prescient. I mean, it was very ominous. Were you facing this time and again where you wrote there could be a killing and the next victim on a social media platform?
Yeah, actually, honestly, I want to forget that Facebook post of mine.
All right.
I wrote that with conviction, and I know that we know that these attack against doctors were happening, and many a times many doctors and many health workers escaped by a narrow margin. The instruments, or maybe you can call it weapons, are available in the hospitals, like knife, scissors, everything is available. And in previous situations also, there were attacks maybe using scalpels and knives and all. But then in those occasions, the security staff and the nursing staff and the doctors escaped. So, I was writing from my heart. I knew that something of such is happening. I wrote that 3 months back, 4 months back.
Right.
I said, I'll be one person who is going to be killed. Maybe I may be killed. But then unfortunate thing happened, but I want to forget that peaceful. So
right. Let's turn our focus towards this whole drug menace which is there in Kerala. Why I'm asking, look, again, you're a doctor and, I'm a lay person, but no one wants to stigmatize anyone. It's a disease. I mean, I will look at it as a disturbed mind, as a disease when someone breaches that Rubicon and then goes on and has drugs. But don't you think that, look at this entire incident, when we'll all sit maybe a year later to pay our rich tributes to Dr. Vandana Das's passing, I think we should also think about who did it. You know, the person, whether he's under the influence of alcohol or whether he's under the influence of drugs or any other substance. Don't you think that that is one aspect that, you know, needs immediate attention, Dr. Nuhu?
Absolutely. See, in Kerala, I'll be honest in telling that the story like Urta Punjab is happening at the moment in Kerala. So it's unfortunate, and we need to educate people. We need to enforce the law very strongly against drug addiction. We need to educate people. We need to we need to provide provisions to engage the younger generation in more active mechanisms or maybe activities. So we need to do a substantial measures in that aspect. Drug addiction is increasing in Kerala and like in any other part of India. But we need to have actually Indian Medical Association has taken up that initiative also this year. We are doing a lot of activities in that aspect, just like the government is doing. So we need a public support in this. We need to understand this is happening. We cannot believe that it is very difficult to believe that a teacher is addicted to drug and he went to this much this situation. So definitely that's a very alarming situation at the moment in Kerala. We have to address that also very strongly.
Right. And, I know that you will not put a blame on anyone, but, before I go to Asha Jomis, Dr. Nuhu, do you think it is completely the fault of the police, or you think both the police and the hospital administration in failing completely to give security to Dr. Vandana Das?
No, I will not put the blame on a single entity. Maybe the police, definitely they have failed. As the system has failed, no doubt, and we need to put a lot of things there. The public must be aware we have failed in that aspect also. The government has failed, the police has failed, the public has failed, and actually, basically, this is the failure of the people of Kerala, because if a doctors are being continuously attacked, it's going to have a great impact on the health sector in Kerala. So it's a failure of Kerala people.
Right, let me come back to you. Asha Jomis, I want to ask you, and I want to focus on the entire failure once again of the government machinery, of the government of Kerala when it comes to controlling the menace of drugs. We've heard ad nauseum about alcohol, the consumption, what happens in Kerala. Again, I'm not trying to stereotype certain images which have been put into our head, but in this particular case, this man has had repeat episodes of being under the influence and turning completely violent and incoherent. He was brought into hospital and everyone was saying he was sure. Some say he's acting, but who are we to say he's acting? I mean, we are not doctors, we are not psychiatrists. Apparently, that's how he's behaving. Also, where he has been now housed, he's saying someone is trying to kill me, he's showing schizophrenic behavior, whatever it may be. My point is, what has the government done just to announce, Vimukti and making a great show of trying to curb the drug menace? Don't you think it has failed completely when it comes to putting a lid on it?
Yes, as you have rightly said, this is a clear case of governance failure. If you look at the attack on health workers, this has been happening consistently for the past few years. The doctors have been consistently requesting the government to step up and take action. So the government always resort to quick fixes. They would say they would bring a ordinance, but they would never bring an ordinance. They would never put any practice in place that would ensure the safety of the doctors. And again, if you look at the drug problem, the government will do a lot of PR stunts like, campaigning in schools, colleges, that any individual can do. A film star can do it through his Facebook or Instagram profile. You don't need a government to do those kind of things. You need the government to do the job of a government, and that is to run a state, do governance, not PR stunts. This is the exact strategy. If you look at the Justice Hema Committee report, the PR stunt. They would spend crores of money for a justice to bring out a report. Did they do anything about the report? No. Was anybody convicted? No. And again, one film producer had the audacity to come in Facebook Live, reveal the name of the victim, and he is roaming around free making more movies. What is the message that this gives to the ordinary citizens? That this government is totally incapable of doing its job. But it's so good at PR stunts. Not just in this case, even in big infrastructure projects, they
Right.
do a lot of PR stunts, and the infrastructure project would never happen because they are incapable of building public consensus.
Right.
Here, the doctors, they can really pressure the government, at least at this point, at least at this juncture, that they have to bring those ordinances in place. Plus, there has to be convictions. The cases have to go to the court.
Right,
There has
right.
to be a fast track court, and all these things have to come into place.
Absolutely. You know,
and all these cases.
Yeah. This has to be quick convictions, like Asha Jomi says. You can't possibly sit on it for years after years because you have eyewitnesses. Look, I do not know the law. I am not the police. But there is one thing. There has to be justice for Dr. Vandana Das. Here was a young doctor. Look at her. Look at her. That is Dr. Vandana Das, early 20s, only child of her parents, even if she was the sixth child. Doesn't matter, but only child. I mean, can you imagine? Apparently, her wedding was fixed. She was about to get married, and there she is, stabbed by someone who was brought there under the influence of substance abuse. And you know what? Before the politicians jump on this and make it very political, let's listen to two voices who are asking the same thing, justice for their colleague.
We are optimistic and hopeful that a solution will emerge. There is a single point important demand that a Hospital Protection Act in the name of Vandana should be established, and till such time that the act is in place, an ordinance should be there.
The thing is that you used to get bites, and we get the beat, we get strike, and the things it's the same thing is repeating every time. So this time what happens is a life is lost. So what we demand is we need a protection. We need the protection of our life. We are taking duties off and on. And actually 24 hours we are covering. In a off time when we are getting a bite, we don't know how we are going to react on it. We need a protection. That's what we are demanding.
Jisha, do you think that there is any hope that what is the government saying? I mean, the doctors met Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, and what is he saying? Do you think the courts has really wrapped them on the knuckles and said, what are you doing? You need to provide more protection to the doctors. But then I'm asking you, is there enough and more of pressure which is being built so that, Dr. Vandana Das could be given the rightful tribute, which is justice?
Yes, CM Pinarayi Vijayan has convened an emergency meeting of high-level officials today. I think it is happening right now. So I think the doctors in Kerala have been demanding this ordinance and amendments in the act for a long time. After every attack, they carry out protests and meet doctors, meet ministers, and file petitions. But finally, everyone had to wait for a death to act. Now I think the system has suddenly woke up, and the government has convened an emergency meeting. Hopefully, they will take some decisions. Even the High Court has asked to come up with an immediate solution, a change in our ordinance, and also take a decision on the safety protocols. So I think hopefully we can have some decisions coming up today after the emergency meeting.
Varghese, I want to ask you, don't you think that the police took it very casually when they must have? Now, this is all speculation, conjecture. But I'm asking you, the police have been, there are a lot of questions on the police, not just Kerala police, but police all over, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, everyone. But imagine to bring someone like that and be very casual. He was not handcuffed apparently.
That is where the story gets much more murkier, because here we have the accused actually calling the police because of a
Right.
domestic dispute that was there in his house. So technically he was the complainant, and he says that he suffered injuries, and therefore the police had brought him to the hospital for the legal procedures to be taking place, because they were in the midst of a complaint. Now during that time, they said that he was calm. This is some of what the police said, that he looked calm, so there was no need to handcuff him. But the police seems to have in fact missed out on the point that the person could be brought, but their presence was required, and their presence of mind was also required. And here what we see is that the person, after he turns out to be suddenly violent, he first attacked his relative who was also there.
Right.
So the fight that was happening domestically in his house did spill out into the hospital as well, and therefore the police were finding it quite difficult to manage the situation as such. But the fact remains is that they did not respond to that situation. They were not prepared for anything to go wrong in that situation. And when we listen to the eyewitness accounts of how he went about this murder, where he was sitting on top of the unfortunate victim, it looked like there was completely a collapse of everything in that place. The security, the police, and because it seemed to be a very huge free ride that was given to this person. If this person had a history of being violent, the police, of course, were not having a clue.
And they could have
it.
restrained him.
They could have restrained him.
I mean, handcuffs is a bit much, but
we have Dr. News speaking about saying that sedation could have been provided. So basically, they went to a place without knowing the antecedent or history of what was happening.
Right.
They were just responding to it. But still, they failed in their duty to, in fact, immediately react to the situation.
yes, so we are discussing the Kerala stabbing, the real Kerala story, as it were, because this is the death of a very young doctor, Dr. Vandana Das. Let me go to Dr. Nuhu. Dr. Nuhu, you just heard my colleague Varghese speaking about it, that, everything seemed to have failed at that given moment when, Dr. Vandana Das was attacked. Imagine someone sitting on your chest, which means that he took complete control of the situation. Dr. Nuhu, I want to ask you something. When doctors like you, I mean, what are the rules? Suppose a doctor and a team of doctors, they are going out of town for an epidemic or an emergency, and they are attacked, or if they get injured, or if there is an accident, are there any laws in place, Dr. Nuhu?
Yeah, there is an existing act in Kerala, Kerala in 2000, which was enacted in 2012. Very toothless and very mild law. But we have requested, Indian Medical Association has requested the national government to come out with a national law against hospital attacks. But later on, the government withdrew their proposed draft bill, and now they say that it's a state government's duty. We strongly recommend that, we strongly demand that there must be a central law also in place, so that the attack against doctors and health professionals are coming to an end. So we need that act very strong in the central act, and also the state can also have their own rules and regulations to bring down the number of attacks.
Right. I also want to ask you that, do you have any hope, because you've met the Chief Minister? What did the Chief Minister say this morning to you?
Yeah, we met the Chief Minister, and Chief Minister said they are going to do a meeting at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. today. That's happening now. And now I think some solution will come out. But if it is not coming, we will go all out for a strike. We'll go all out for a strike, which will be indefinite one, including casualty. The doctors of Kerala are agitated, and they are very aggressive at the moment. The medical students, the junior doctors, everyone is agitated, and they all 99% of doctors were demanding for an indefinite strike, including casualty. But we have taken another decision to come out with a strike in which the casualties are excluded. We are not sure. We will be forced to do an indefinite strike, including casualty. That will be a disaster for anyone. We can see that, but definitely we will be forced. We have to have a safe environment to work.
Dr. Nuhu, tell me something. I started this show by saying that there was a time when everyone showered you with rose petals. You remember that time? You were COVID warriors. You were the ones who worked non-stop for 48 hours and saved lives. You put your lives in risk, and doctors never went home. Their own children's families could not see them. Do you think it's all an eyewash, Dr. Nuhu?
Yeah, yes, we lost more than 1,000 doctors all over India.
Exactly.
In Kerala also, we have lost several lives of doctors, and also so many health professionals while after taking duties in COVID wards. But we have to understand that even before the COVID era, doctors are at high risk. They may get hepatitis, they may get HIV/AIDS by a cut, maybe they get another infections. There are I can tell you this: there are several doctors, almost more than 10 doctors taking treatment for multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, which definitely they got it from, they definitely got it from their patients. You know, this is a health hazard. It's there. We understand that it's our duty to treat our patients taking that risk. We will continue to do that irrespective of these attacks happening. That's because we are trained like that, and we are bound to do our duty. We are trained professionals, which we apply our knowledge to save lives. It's our duty. We will continue to do that irrespective of the attacks. But this will not. These attacks. We cannot tolerate this.
But Dr. Nuhu, do you think it's an eyewash? All these showering you with petals and calling you. I mean, when the real issue is there, no one turns up. No, Dr. Nuhu. Look at the case of Dr. Vandana Das. Who's going to bring her back?
Absolutely. See, that is true. Absolutely true. See, when some situation comes like COVID-19 and all, they'll shower you all those things. And when an important issue like violence against hospitals come, they'll be keeping mum. Even the explanation by the ministry, central ministry, says that there will be other professionals. They'll also demand for some kind of protection, and it is not feasible. That is nonsense, because this health profession is totally different. Even during wars, even during attack against another country, the hospitals and doctors are spared. The opponents, hospitals and doctors are spared. That is because you need to save lives. That's a basic policy, and if you don't protect us, it's going to be it's very, very sad situation.
Right. Doc, let me go to Asha Jomis for the concluding remark on this, on a very unfortunate day, when the country has buried a young doctor, Dr. Vandana Das. Asha, you know what will happen is, which I fear is that the doctors are going on strike. For the first day, no one is going to react. But from tomorrow, the entire public of Kerala will turn against them and say, you are not supposed to do that. Politicians will start speaking about asthma. Politicians will start speaking about the hypocritical youth. They will oath, I beg your pardon. All that will happen. How does public opinion, how do you garner public opinion for something like this? After all, hospitals have to work, no?
Firstly, on behalf of all the people in Kerala, I would like to apologize to Dr. Noah and all the other health workers who have been facing this continuously. And I'm really sorry that the government is also not taking the action. But the government at this juncture must step up and do more than public relations and do the real job of a government and do governance. They must bring out the ordinance and make sure that the safe working environment is provided to all the healthcare workers. And also, I know that there is no other option for the healthcare workers but to go to protest if the government does not do its job. But it's only when the government does not do its job that the doctors are forced to go to protest. The doctors will not go to protest because some criminal decided to attack them. They need the assurance from the government that it has done its job. Even in this case, we know that there is clear evidence at this point that the system, the government, the state, the police, the hospital administration, a lot of people involved in this chain has failed to provide the protection for the healthcare sector workers. So I think that is the thing that we have to do. The state must step up and do the job and should refrain from making any insensitive comments at this point. The police must be given enough training to handle such situations. The court, as you have seen today, has stepped up and requested for an immediate action. And also from the government, it has asked for the action plan for protection for the doctors. So as you can see, all these institutions has risen up to the occasion. Now we need to see that these are translated to action and not just into words.
Right. I am completely, there is a loss of words. Let me thank all of you, Dr. Sulfini, Asha Jomis, and my colleague Jisha, of course, Verghese. Thanks are due also to you. But what do? We can't bring the young Dr. Vandana Das back, and as a tribute, we can only say, we need to protect our doctors. It is high time that we do that. With that hope, for all the news and analysis, keep watching News9 Live.